Hey there. Something my dad and I have a disagreement on, and we disagree on quite a few things, as it would appear to be. But this is something that I think we're kind of miscommunicating on. It's about work. There seems to be this narrative where older generations of Americans believe that the younger generations, so millennials and Generation Z, whatnot, are lazy and don't want to work, and they just want to exist and basically be hippies is what the consensus is. But the truth is that's not true. Okay, that's not actually the case. And the reason I know this to be true is even if I had the financial ability to just not work and live a decent standard of living lifestyle, every single day for the rest of my life, I would eventually, want to do something besides just spend money, and eventually want to do something besides just going to the beach or going on vacation or traveling or exploring. I would eventually want to do something else, and that something else would probably be a life goal, that I'd fixate myself on, be it studying the human body, nutrition science, sports science, building a lifelong goal, building towards something like maybe I want to go ahead and hit a PR, and this is like a Guinness Book World Record PR, right? Maybe it's that, or maybe it's something that's more socially connected. Maybe I want to go ahead and, build a community. I want to go ahead and get people together in the masses. I want them all to start working together. I want them all to start, coexisting again. Regardless of what it is, the fact remains that I don't want to just go ahead and sit underneath a tree in the shade, just chilling, for the rest of my life. That's not what I want. Truthfully, what I really want is to have a family and have kids, and that's not simple. It's not at all. It's the exact opposite of not working, I would argue. It requires constant and total vigilance and discipline and, consistency. It's an everyday deal, every hour, every minute, every second. You're on call 24/7, 365 as a parent, as a family. But the fact is that the reason there are so many men, mostly men, but women too, who feel like society is just not delivering on their end of the bargain, and so they're just kind of like throwing their hands in the air and they're just checking out of the social structure. The reason they're doing that is because they're not actually getting the opportunity to have their own families and have their own kids. It's almost impossible at this point, from a logistical standpoint in the United States of America, for a man and a woman to meet and get married and have kids, even if they have the same values and the same political ideals, and they have the same ethics, and they have the same concepts of understanding in life. Even if all that rings true, and even if they are, very frugal, they spend very few dollars, it's extremely difficult to start a family in 2025. Extremely difficult. And I think we don't talk about it. We don't really express how bad it is, and it's bad. It's very bad, and it's not getting better. It's getting worse. Every year, inflation is eating away at the value of the dollar. Okay, there are banks out there that are trying to undermine the working class citizens, and by working class citizens, I'm referring to people who are not in the club. So the 99% percentile, essentially, bottom percentile. Those are the people who are feeling just worn out. They feel like there's no point in life. They feel like everything's just a waste. And frankly, why shouldn't they feel that way? It's pretty bad. And I keep saying this. For anyone who's watching, you've probably heard me say this a million times, but I'm 25 years old. I'm very healthy. I've gone to the gym for almost 10 years. I have good finances. I've got an actual portfolio built up. I've got no debt. I've got a financial future. I can't find a lady. A couple of weeks ago, I drove over 100 miles out of my way to meet with a gal for coffee. That was my mistake. I obviously should not have done that, but when you're desperate to meet somebody, you are willing to do things you normally would not do. Probably wasn't even a real person. It was probably just a robot wasting my time, and they really did waste my time. That probably wasn't a real person. Things are getting bad, and honestly, we as a society need to step up. Okay, because honestly, we should be expecting worse from the working class. The working class should be revolting, and by revolting, I'm not referring to a physical, violence. I'm saying that we should be withdrawing from the system, and we should stop supporting it. We should stop being consumers. I promise you, if 100 million Americans stopped shopping for a month straight and just fasted, we would have the entire GOP down to their knees, because we would stop giving them money. Dollars would stop flowing. Infrastructure would stop moving. That would cost billions of dollars, several billions of dollars, within a month. But the problem, of course, is that, for one, how on earth you get 100 million Americans to cooperate with each other and to move with each other? I mean, goodness gracious, we all hate each other. Makes you wonder why we all hate each other, to prevent something like that from happening. But just some thoughts. So the next time an older generation American says, man, these young guys, they just don't care. They just don't want to work. It's not that they don't want to work. It's just that they know that they're being taken advantage of, and it's not worth it. It's not worth breaking your back when you've got nothing to come home to.